Brilliant. So we look at the Wrocław University of Life and Environmental Sciences now, which is located south west of the country, and it is one of my favorite Polish cities. I have to admit, because it seems to be one of the most dynamically growing business centers, despite not being one of the biggest cities in Poland. It got a very vibrant cultural scene. So if students are looking for a good time out, good nights out, that's definitely the place to be. Of course, I would rather suggest focusing on the academic side of the program, but I'm sure that if you choose to go to Wrocław, you will definitely enjoy your time there. So Wrocław is looking for, in terms of the entry requirements, Wrocław is looking for 2 sciences at the leaving cert, at least one of them at higher level, and it needs to be either biology or chemistry. In the absence of the second science, you will face more questions at the online interview from the absent, from the science that is absent from your leaving cert. So essentially, you would need to study biology and chemistry to get into Wrocław. Now, in the past, we have had students, applicants who then became students who did only one of the science at the leaving cert, and they studied on their own the second science and were able to prepare for the entrance exam and an interview. We may have Saif on the call here. Saif Moran, I'm not sure if she's here, but she was one of the students who did only one science, and she was happy to start the program in Wrocław. Now the entry requirements for Wrocław are changing this year a little bit in terms of the deadlines, and that may be a challenge for Irish applicants, because I spoke to the admissions office in Wrocław today, to confirm that everyone who has not passed their leaving cert yet will. So Wrocław basically does what's called intakes of 4 batches of students will be ranked and made offers throughout the summer. The dates are available on the website. So we have the first intake between the 1st of March and essentially 25th of June, and then from May to mid-August is the second one, and then from July, the 12th of July until the 5th of September is the third intake, and then the fourth intake is 15th August until the 23rd of September. They overlap because there are different stages of those, and of course we can explain that in detail once we get on to one-to-one. If you have questions towards the end of the webinar, we can discuss that as well. The unfortunate decision that was made for Irish students who will have their leaving certs coming relatively late is that whilst the Irish applicants will be able to do the interviews for Wrocław this year in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th intake, so pretty much any time between the 17th of March in theory, some of the intakes would have, some of the interviews would have started. So whilst you can do an interview throughout the summer, before your leaving cert, from a formal perspective, until you have your final or CAO results from the leaving cert, you won't be ranked. So essentially what's going to happen is most of the applicants from Ireland are going into the 4th intake, are going to be part of the 4th intake, which I think may cause the admission to Wrocław being more competitive this year, as most of them will be ranked only on the 23rd of September. So that has several implications. That's one thing that I wanted to flag, and the other is the certificates of approval from the EAEVE, so European body or organization that ensures the quality of education. Ensures the quality of education at vet schools globally, different vet schools, and I believe Wrocław is looking to get that certificate of approval again. So it needs to do that in the coming weeks or months. Now, from a formal perspective, that is, I believe that there's no effect whether the university has or doesn't have that seal of approval or that certificate of approval does not impact whether one can qualify as a vet and whether one can register with the Vet Council in Ireland. As of now, it doesn't have an impact. So those are two separate things as far as we're concerned. But the certification is globally recognized, and it should be obtained by the university. So that's also an important thing to bear in mind once you go over the next months through the application process, to ensure that you may want to take into account whether the university has obtained that certification or hasn't. So that's something important to watch out for. Brilliant. So maybe what I can do, and I can see that we're joined by guests from Olsztyn. We'll ask for your contributions in a few minutes. But whilst on Wrocław, maybe I could ask Amie a few questions and open the floor maybe to some of your questions. Amie, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining tonight from Wrocław. I believe that it's probably one of the last times that we can have you on those webinars as a student. Is that correct?
Hopefully.
Because you're in your is it the final semester now?
Second last semester, so I finish in December of this year.
Right. So one more to go after June.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So could you share a little bit of your experience from Wrocław over the last over 4 years now? Or 4 and a half. Some of your experience, whether good or bad, or is it something that surprised you in Wrocław, perhaps, and how you found your journey so far?
Yeah, so I'm a 5th year vet student. So when I joined, it was actually right in the midst of COVID. So I think no one really knew what was going to happen, or everything was kind of up in the air, and we were back and forth from Poland all the time. But I have to say, Arthur, you were very helpful in. We had to organize COVID tests and everything, and Arthur organized them all for us. But hopefully that won't happen again. But it's a 5.5 year course. The first 2 years, it's kind of preclinical. So, anatomy, chemistry, biochemistry, physics, histology, physiology, like just how the animals, like the body systems work and how they're structured. And then you kind of get into the more pathologies, so what's wrong with animals and how it affects the body systems. And then once you get to your 4th year, your semesters are divided into different species. So you do a horses semester, a farm animal semester, and a dogs and cats semester. And in each of them semesters, you do internal diseases, surgery, infectious diseases, and reproduction of the animals. And then from your 2nd semester of 5th year, which is what I'm in now, we start our internships through the university departments. We also have some elective subjects, some food hygiene subjects, which probably are a bit mundane, but it's important. And then next semester, it's internships and electives again, and we finish in December. So our semesters, it's actually important as well. They're different than the semesters they have at home. So our first semester goes from October to February. And then the second from March to sometimes the middle of July, depending on how many exams you have, which I found quite hard at the start because all my friends were finishing in May, June, and I was still stuck here doing my exams, which is the worst period because you wake up, you're studying, maybe go to a few classes, eat your dinner, more study. Not to scare you, of course, but that was kind of hard. I think that's probably the hardest thing for me. The application process was pretty straightforward. Arthur he helped me along the way. So I think I did 2 mock interviews, and that pretty much prepared me for the real thing. I was given a list of topics that frequently get asked, and it was pretty much spot on. They were pretty straightforward questions. They weren't trying to, catch you out, or they're not out to get you. They want you to get in. They're not trying to make you fail, and it was pretty straightforward. And then I got my email to say that I'd been accepted, because I did my interview after my Leaving Cert results, but the system was a bit different back then, so I can't really speak on that for now. The Arthur organised the student dorms for us, so all of us Irish people, we were all put into the dorms. We all were sharing with other Irish people. The dorms were pretty cheap. I think maybe they're a bit more expensive now, but when I say that, they're like €300 a month, so not so expensive compared to Dublin. And yeah, pretty much that was how I moved over there.
So my take from what you're saying definitely is that it's an intense program, and it will be similar wherever you go, really. I need to clarify, I wasn't responsible for the COVID tests. It wasn't. It was my colleagues then role, but yes, there were interesting times. And a lot of support went into making sure that our students are well comfortable, and in those circumstances relatively comfortable in Poland. So that extra support is always there, and I think from the perspective of trying to manage the relationship with the university, and maybe reaching out for help if you need to understand what kind of right you have in terms of resits of some exams, and how to manage maybe a failed module. That extra support that is independent from the university may be helpful.
Yeah, I just remembered you helped me in first year. I had an issue with biophysics. I failed the exam by like 1%, and I really didn't want to reset it, and I got onto Arthur, and he helped me figure out, because I wasn't really sure of the rules, and in the end I didn't have to do the exam, but you were very helpful in kind of guiding me along the way.
I'm glad. I can't remember that, to be honest, but I'm glad that I could. And in some cases, it will be that you can or that we can support students exactly that way. In terms of adjusting to living in Poland, because I in a few minutes I will want to jump to our guests from Olsztyn as well. But whilst we have you, Amie, from a student perspective, how did you find the process of transitioning from Ireland to Poland? Whether there were any issues, or maybe surprising or interesting things?
Yeah, I think the first 3 months up until about December, I think that was probably the hardest, because you're moving away from your family for the first time, and you're in a foreign country, and everything's new, and the classes are you're thrown straight into the deep end, and it's just kind of finding your feet. But I think once you get over that period from December, it's like I haven't had any issues since. I'm pretty comfortable here. I have my own set of friends. I have hobbies that I do over here. I'm very happy, and I don't regret moving over here at all. But also everyone's in the same boat. Most people are moving away for the first time, and you're all in it together, and it's kind of, I feel like you form a bond with everyone, because it's like one big family almost.
And we hear those comments from any university that would have even a small group of Irish students, and the numbers also at medical schools range from 5, 6, 7 to over 200 at some med schools. Brilliant. Could we possibly take maybe one preferably a question to Amie, if someone has one, specifically maybe regarding the kind of student aspects, and we'll then move to our guest from Olsztyn and from Beijing. Are there any questions? Brilliant. Melissa, I can see that you raised your hand. If you'd like to unmute and ask a question, please.
Hi, I was just wondering, how did you find chemistry in secondary school, and would you say that chemistry is a large part of the course over in Poland?
I really, really struggled with chemistry in secondary school. I'm not going to lie to you. But the first year and a half, it is quite a big part of the course, but it's manageable. Like I really, really struggle with chemistry, and I passed both modules, chemistry and biochemistry. So I think it is a big part of it, but it's like you can get through it, and most people do get through it, so it's possible.
And can I ask can I add on that? We are increasingly making efforts to prep our students or applicants, and chemistry tends to be the where they need most support. So on top of the mock interviews, we also started to provide revision notes and study materials, and we're also looking to offer tutoring. So maybe a short course or a tutoring in smaller groups, but that's live and tutor led to address some of the particularly chemistry issues. Can we take one more question before we switch to our second university? Yes, please.
Hi, Amie. First, thanks for joining the call. It's great to get feedback from a student that's on the course. My question is around the day-to-day classes. What's the split between like lectures and, if you like, hands-on lab or practical experience? Like, are they long days each day? How many hours roughly per week? And what's the split between lectures and practicals?
So I'd say it definitely depends on the semester. Some of them would have a lot more classes than others. Our lectures are about an hour and a half standard, and you'd have one lecture in each subject a week. And most semesters we'd have about 7 or 8 subjects, so 7 lectures a week, depending on the semester. I have 4 lectures this semester. It's very chilled so far, but I'm at the end of the road now, so that's not what you'll be experiencing. But labs, depending on the subject, can range from an hour and a half to 3 hours long. But the 3-hour labs, you are given breaks and you're not expected to concentrate for 3 hours straight, depending on the subject. Like, I think our anatomy labs were 3 hours long. But we were just kind of left with our cadaver, and the teacher went over the material with us, and then we'd kind of go through it ourselves. So you kind of were free to come and go when you wanted. I'd say on average, maybe like 30 contact hours a week, I would say. So see, last semester, my Monday, I had an 11-hour day, which was pretty intense. But then my Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I had 2 hours of class a day. So sometimes your semesters will be like that. You have everything packed in one day, and your other days are pretty free. But there is free time. Like, definitely free time. And then in terms of the practical classes, I'd say you have your first contact with live animals in second year in physiology, and then from third year it's continuous. Every week you'll have classes with live animals in your clinical and laboratory diagnostics class, and then from then it's a lot more practical, and you'll be practicing tubing animals and taking blood and stuff like that. So once you get past third year, it's definitely a lot more hands-on.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for the answer.
Brilliant. Perfect. So thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing those thoughts. Please note that we will be doing another session geared towards student experience.